For those who may have grown up being told to never discuss politics, sex, or religion, had obviously never heard today's gospel. And I guess Jesus didn't get the memo either. The Samaritan woman, her world was one of utter grief. She knew no one loved her. No one needed to remind her. She could hear the wicked tongues. She had heard the words slung at her for years, unwanted, abandoned, worthless, disgraced, disordered, sinner, strumpet, and others. She had been shunned. She saw the hard stares and judgmental glances. She heard the whisper campaign, often spoken loudly, and she became rough and tough in her self-preservation as she learned to keep all her pain inside. Everybody knew her story. That was the problem. They thought they knew her story. But even she didn't know who she was. So how could the strangers and so-called friends and neighbors who judged her so harshly know her? Every day she came for water, alone. She wasn't welcome at the well in her own village. No, she couldn't go there in the cool of the day. The beautiful women had that well covered. Instead, she had to trudge her way out to Jacob's well every day and at the hottest time of the day. She had no companions for camaraderie or safety either. A permanent outcast, like a broken water jar cast out. The Samaritans were half-breeds, half-Jew, and half something else. She also was a woman, a second-class citizen, if that. She already had 2 strikes against her, half-breed and a woman. Add to the mix her marital status, and you have a despised woman. Who knows what kind of family life she had, and her understanding of theology or faith is based on hearsay, not even knowing if her prayers were being heard by a God she did not really know. Her life had taken a sad turn through a series of unfortunate broken relationships, and after 5 husbands, and who knows if 1 or more of her husbands had died, or if they all ended in divorce, she was now living with a new lover, not even bothering with marriage this time, not knowing how to make sense of her life, or if she should even care. What was she thinking as she trudged up the hill to fetch a pail of water, like she did so many times before? Was she thinking of her hungry children and how they were the butt of jokes because of her mistakes and misfortune? Oh, the angst in her heart as she made her way in the burning heat. And her thirst was very real. I wonder if her mind turned to the Psalms, that she may have heard Jewish pilgrims praying as they made their way to Jerusalem for one of the feasts. O God, you are my God, for you I long. For you my soul is thirsting. My body pines for you, like a dry, weary land without water. Or, that was Psalm 63. Or Psalm 42. Like the deer that yearns for running streams, so my soul is thirsting for you, my God. My soul is thirsting for God. Oh, when can I enter and see the face of God? One may well wonder if she had prayed such a prayer. And little did she know that she soon would be entering the presence of Christ and behold the face of God. All of her earthly pursuits still left her thirsting for more. Whether it was her love of worldly pleasures, clothing, music, or entertainment, a lover's embrace, the finest foods or choicest of wines, all sensual delights still left her longing for still more, for something more, or someone. Yes, here she stood, an empty water jar, ready to be filled. But deep down she knew she had one hope remaining. There is one belief she has clung to among all of her personal failures, all of her rejection and loneliness and shame. Through her darkest hours of the darkest of days, the hope that God had not abandoned her. She says, I know the Messiah is coming. This one belief has sustained her. It is the one truth that has not abandoned her. Then she sees a man. She may have thought, that's all I need, another man. And he asks her a favor. Give me a drink. That's what they all say. She snaps back. You're a Jew and a man. I'm a Samaritan and a woman. Don't you get it? There are societal and political rules. Did you just come down from heaven or what? You don't even have a bucket. What are you doing here in the middle of the day? Christ sees a way to her heart. He took her where she was. He did not judge her, even though she comes on a little strong, doesn't she? Jesus was in need. He allowed her to be generous by asking for a drink. It was noon. He said, I thirst. Jesus listened to her. He sensed her frustration with life. Unlike the others of her village who had ostracized her, he sought her generosity. Perhaps this was the first time in a very long time that anyone, especially a stranger, a Jewish stranger, showed her some semblance of respect and compassion. Jesus asked her for a favor. This is not to be confused with someone barking orders at her. Woman, get me my dinner. Get me a drink. Or even her children, who may have been constantly tugging at her apron or challenging her as a single mother. No, this was a voice of love. This was a voice of compassion, a voice of grace. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. This was a one-on-one encounter, one human person to another. Christ did not condemn. He listened. He gave her room to act generously, for she still had that capacity for kindness, though it may have been buried deep within her tough outer shell. Give me a drink, he says. Don't you know what kind of person I am, she says. You'll be contaminated. I'll take that risk. Besides, if you knew the gift of God and who it is speaking to you, then you would have asked him for a drink. Ha! Sir, you don't even have a bucket. The water I will give will become a living spring of eternal life. Sir, give me some of that water. Jesus is creating a relationship. He is breaking down the walls of division. Then Jesus changes the tone of his conversation. He says, go call your husband. At these words, she is stunned. She experiences an epiphany. She suddenly caught sight of herself. Were these failed human relationships a pathetic attempt to fill her life with what only God could provide? She admits, I have no husband. I have no one. The woman suddenly saw herself as she was. Jesus replies, What you have said is true. You have answered honestly. To which she exclaims, Sir, I can see that you are a prophet. Is this a distraction? A clever way to change the subject? I wouldn't be so quick to judge her. This woman is no dummy. Notice that she did not lash out at Christ or make any excuses when he told her that she had 5 husbands and a current live-in lover. In her moment of recognition that Jesus identifies her broken human relationships, she changes the subject to her broken relationship with God. She then asks where she is to worship God. Was she trying to find the true God, seeking a way to offer a sacrifice of praise in the messiness of her tangled life? She says, we Samaritans worship here, but you Jews in Jerusalem, which is true. Where can I find God? Where can I faithfully offer a sacrifice of praise? Yes, she is thirsty, thirsting for truth. I know the Messiah is coming. And when he comes, he will tell us everything, she says. Jesus replied, I who am speaking to you, I am he. For Jesus is the true temple of God. He touched upon the real source of all her heartache. He knew her through and through. Perhaps he was the first man in her life who truly loved her, not asking her to be someone she was not, but accepting her as she was, taking her where she was, sin and all, yet inviting her to grow in grace and faith. The disciples show up at this point, and she leaves her water jar and runs to her village and tells everyone, "Come see the one who told me everything I ever did." The townspeople, some may have likely said, "So what? Everybody knows what you've done. Big deal. Who cares if one more man knows it?" But you see, the townsfolk had never given her an opportunity for conversion. They had never held out love that was unconditional and unearned. They could not see beyond mere physical appearance or the twitter of gossip. They never took the time to welcome her in a dialogue that would open her heart or quench her thirst for belonging. To them, she was always the bad Samaritan. But Jesus the Christ saw through all of that false compassion of gossip and asked for a drink of water. "I thirst." Jesus' willingness to talk to her made her want to open up. By Jesus accepting her, he revealed her deeper self to herself, for he loved her for who she was and all that she could be. She then received the waters of life, the life of Christ. And now she was giving life to others, to her community, the very community that had shunned her because it didn't matter anymore. Her life was an open book anyway. Now it was written with the grace of God and the waters of life. Therefore, what started out as a one-on-one encounter ended up as an entire community celebration of saint and sinner, men and women, Samaritan and Jew, breaking bread together and sharing the good news of Christ's love. What if we were to approach each person we encounter with such care, such kindness, and compassion and patience? Each one of us is the woman at the well. Christ has encountered us and given us freely of the life-giving waters. So, will we drop our water jars and seek out others, sharing what Christ has done for each of us here? Because if she can do it, then so can we.